The pulse of the Gulf Stream. The salt and the silence. The ocean in Miami doesn't sound like water. It sounds like 1,000 desperate breaths taken just beneath the surface, a heavy, saline, wet gasp that I started hearing even in the sealed, air-conditioned vault of my little Havana studio. I came here for the clean break. I got the sun, the white walls, and the endless, glittering deception. I got Miami, the city that doesn't let you start over, it only allows you to accrete, layer by layer, until you're just part of the silt. My job at the Nexus Art Gallery was the perfect alibi. We trafficked in the difficult artists of the 20th century, the ones who walked into the wilderness or off a bridge. Their art was already halfway to the morgue. The problem, the Nexus itself, arrived in a crate marked personal effects. The owner, a shipping magnate, vanished from his yacht 2 weeks out of Port Miami. No body, no note. Just a cold deck and an open bottle of rye. The canvas was titled The Coastal Cycle. A massive, aggressive abstraction of deep-sea azure and a virulent, sickening coral red. It wasn't paint, it was a physical texture, like dried kelp or scar tissue. Stare long enough, and the colors didn't just blend, they churned. By the third day, it started smelling. Not oil. Not turpentine. The smell was of stagnant mangrove mud and ancient, mineralized blood. It was subtle, a damp whisper on the pristine gallery air. I was the only one who seemed to notice it, which is precisely how this kind of thing always begins. You get the exclusive on the horror. 2. The infrasonic heart. At 12:07 a.m., the rhythm began. A low, subterranean thud. Thump, thump, thump. It was too slow for music, too steady for construction. It felt like something massive, geological, turning over in its sleep beneath the city's neon veneer. I was on the 6th floor of a soundproofed building, but the sound didn't travel, it simply was, vibrating the back of my skull. I tried earplugs. They amplified the pressure in my sinuses. I tried white noise. The rhythm would simply slide underneath the sound, becoming a relentless, dark pulse at the edge of hearing. I knew, with the chilling certainty of a revelation, that this was not a noise outside. It was a resonance. After a week of sleepless nights, the sound brought with it a craving. It wasn't hunger or thirst. It was an acute, desperate feeling of imbalance. A physical vacancy that demanded to be satisfied, to be filled. When the rhythm came, I felt hollowed out, ready. I went digging into the Magnate's records. Found fragments of research notes, Native American Miami legends of the Great Water, Okeechobee, and cryptic mentions of currents and tides, ancient sacrifices meant to appease the moving, consuming boundary between the swamp and the sea. The cycle demanded a fee. 3. The map beneath the paint. I decided to wait it out in the gallery. I knew the painting was the key. My boss, a perpetually sweating man named Mark, had already warned me off it. It drains the room, he'd whispered, rubbing his temples. Just cold, you know. A constant cold. At 2 a.m., the rhythm arrived, heavier this time. Tum. 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 It rattled the expensive plate glass and vibrated the lenses in my eyes. I hit the canvas with my high-powered UV light. The abstraction dissolved. Under the violet glare, I saw faint, needle-thin lines etched beneath the top layer. They weren't paint, they were symbols. A map, yes, but not of streets, of undercurrents. A diagram of the Miami shoreline overlaid with a terrifying timeline of disappearances and geophysical events. It was a schedule, meticulously documented. As the rhythm peaked, the pressure in my chest felt unbearable. My body moved without my consent. My hand reached out, guided by a singular, cold imperative. I grabbed a brush and the thickest pigment, ferrous oxide red, the color of dried veins. I was supposed to finish it. Complete the circuit. Rattle, rattle, rattle. The rhythm broke into a frantic, accelerating staccato. It wasn't a pulse, it was a death rattle. Then, the ceiling started weeping. The water was thick, viscous, and sickeningly warm. The smell of rust and salt was overwhelming. A drop hit the edge of the canvas. It didn't run, it was sucked in. Where the water was absorbed, the dark azure suddenly went absolute, an impossible, three-dimensional blackness that seemed to recede into the wall. It was a window into a crushing depth. I looked up. The leak was not a pipe. The water was pooling, growing, and reflecting something in its disturbed surface, shifting, serpentine shapes, too long, too substantial to be shadows. The gallery lights died. Utter darkness. The air instantly turned suffocatingly damp and cold. SSSPLOSH. Not a drip. The sound of something impossibly heavy, a full corpse, a sack of stone, an anchor, falling into a reservoir of water that was now all around me. A profound, sickening cold pressed onto my shoulder. Smooth. Slippery. Patient. I couldn't move. I choked on the metallic salt air. And right above me, the whisper came. It wasn't in my ears, it was in the hollow of my throat. The ebb is complete. The new tide has been charted. The language was not spoken. It was felt, a terrible, resonant certainty that belonged to the silent, crushing pressures of the deep Gulf Stream. The shadow's hand, heavy and damp, drifted toward the canvas. Paralyzed, I saw only one thing in the dark, a single, thin streak of glowing coral, freshly added to the canvas. And then, the lights returned. 4. The imprint. The gallery was dry. The ceiling pristine. The painting hung, unchanged, absorbing the cool air. I was on the floor, gasping, my clothes dry, but my right shoulder was numb. On my arm, where the shadow had rested, was a thin, surgical line of coral pigment. It was not on the skin. It was under it. And it pulsed faintly, a slow, sickening beat mirroring my own heart. I crawled to the painting. In the chaotic blue-red landscape, a single, new coral symbol had been integrated into the ancient chart. It was the exact shade, the exact hue, as the line embedded in my arm. The magnate vanished. His tithe was paid. His consciousness, his something, was now a permanent mark on the cycle. And I, the curator, the keeper of the problematic, was now the next vessel. The new mark. The next entry on the chart. I left Miami. I flew north, away from the Atlantic. But the rhythm has not stopped. It beats in my chest. It is quiet, insidious, and relentless. Thump, thump, thump. And every few months, when the line on my arm seems to grow wider and the craving becomes unbearable, I know what is coming. The cycle is approaching its next turn. I will find a canvas. I will find the darkest red. Because the Gulf Stream doesn't forgive a debt. And Miami, built on the shifting, porous border between the swamp and the abyss, always needs someone to keep the pulse going. I am just waiting for the last piece of me to be added to the canvas. And for the next curator to find the new, fresh striaral.